before they can fill the jobs. We have to know how many there will be. We've had our eyes on New England most of the season. This, for me, goes all the way back to March when Robert Kraft, the owner of the Patriots, was speaking to reporters, and he didn't really say it directly, but it was strongly implied, Bill Belichick's got to win this year, or that's it. So here they are, last place clinched in the division for the first time since Belichick's first season. Their best outcome is going to be 5-12 if they win on Sunday against the Jets. This is very closely guarded, and I'm not sure they even know what they're going to do. I've been using the metaphor for the past week of Robert Kraft going skydiving. Is he going to jump out of the plane when the time comes? I don't know that he's going to, Peter, because for all the flaws and the warts on Bill Belichick, the guy still is special in many ways. And before you throw out a guy who is a great game day coach, a great preparer of teams to go out and play their best, strategically and athletically and emotionally and spiritually, before you move on from that guy, you better be damn sure you're going to get somebody better on the back end. And why not use this as an occasion to try to get him to address some of the things that you regard as flaws? And maybe he will. Maybe he doesn't want to leave. I just think there's a lot to be determined when Bill Belichick breaks through from that laser focus on what's next. And once the last game is played, you know what's next? Let's sit down and figure out what we're going to do next year. So I think a lot of this is still to be determined.
Well, Mike, I think it's still to be determined, but it will be an upset if Bill Belichick is the coach of the Patriots a week from today. And, at some point, you just have to say, honestly, time to move on. Tom Brady said it. He wasn't getting the love from Belichick. I think Belichick felt it was time to move on. Now, 4 years post-Brady, if the Patriots win this week, or let's forget if they win this week. 4 years post-Brady, they're 9 games under 500, have not won a playoff game. This will be the 4th straight year without a playoff win. Have not developed a modern offense. Have no quarterback of the future. And so now you ask yourself this question. What if Robert Kraft on Monday or Tuesday says to Bill, tell me your plans for the offense? And if Bill, I guarantee you, Bill's not going to say, I plan to look at the Sean McVay tree and take a great young offensive mind and bring him in here and hand him the reins of the offense. And I plan to take a new look at our player personnel department. I'm going to hand Elliott Wolf the reins to be general manager, and he'll have final say on the draft. So all I'm going to do is put together the game plan and coach this team, and I'll leave the offense to the new guy. Mike, the chances of that happening are fairly slim. And in my opinion, I think Robert Kraft wants a breath of fresh air. I think Jonathan Kraft, his son, wants a breath of fresh air. And so I think the best thing for everyone concerned is to shake hands, issue a united front, have a lovely press conference next Thursday, and Bill says thank you to the Krafts. They hug, they part. The Krafts don't hold them hostage. Don't try to get a 2 or a 3 for them. That's beneath them, honestly. I don't think they should trade him. I think they should say to Bill, hey, Bill, thanks a million, but you're free to go and do whatever you want and coach wherever you want. And I think that's how it should end. I don't know how I think it will end because Belichick obviously is a stubborn guy. I think the Krafts can be stubborn. So again, I don't know how it'll end. I do know this. My only hope, and you're right about this, is that Robert Kraft is a sentimental human being. He wanted Tom Brady to retire, a Patriot. And if he could find some diplomatic way to do that with Bill Belichick, to get the record in New England with some concessions on how the team is run, I think Kraft would listen, but I doubt sincerely that's going to happen.
And I think it makes it easier for Kraft to move forward believing that he did everything in his power to try to salvage the relationship and didn't just say, that's it, it's done, 5-12 is unacceptable. No, we see some good and we see some bad. And if there's a way to iron out the bad, we could still be pretty good over the final years of Bill Belichick's career, however many years he has left as a head coach. Who knows? He's in his 70s. He said at one point he's not going to coach until he's 70. So it becomes at a certain point who you are, and you can't envision your life without that. And I imagine he'll keep going. And I agree with you. I hope they don't try to play this game of taking it slowly. And there are some in the media who are pushing the idea that it's going to take a few weeks, wink, wink, nod, nod. They're going to wait for the phone to ring so they can trade him to the Commanders or trade him to this team, trade him to that team. That, to me, that's not the right way to separate. The right way to separate is to say, we're going our separate ways. You go forward, we go forward. We're tearing up the contract. We don't owe you anything. Go get your $20 million from someone else. We're not going to hold you hostage. We're not going to force your next team to give us draft pick compensation. You go, we go. Thanks for the memories. I hope that's what the outcome is, instead of a game that gets played where the Patriots think they're going to get their cake and they're going to get to eat it too, where we want to move on from Bill Belichick and we're also going to get a high draft pick for moving on from Bill Belichick.
It just makes the most sense, but that doesn't mean it's going to happen. And look, the fact all year that, relatively speaking, for such a huge story, that we've heard very little that we can take to the bank. And look, with all due respect to Tom Curran, his report a few weeks ago, I think Tom Curran is probably right. But I don't know for sure that is correct. And I think the two sides, especially Belichick, honestly, have done a pretty good job in putting a cap on this bottle and just saying, we'll worry about this when we have to. Belichick said it this week on his radio show with Greg Hill up in Boston that this is the way I've been my whole life. I worry about this game. I don't worry about what happened 4 years ago. I don't worry about what's going to happen in 2 years. I've always worked this way. And Mike, I was putting together some thoughts for something on my column this Monday on Belichick. And I'm just going to tell you two things that, as I have been thinking about it, you probably know, and most people, maybe not many will know, I don't know, but Bill Belichick, this is his 49th year as an NFL coach. I mean, think about that. And do you realize the first game of his first year in 1975, he was Ted Marchibroda's basically personal assistant, sort of a gopher, as he later described it, with the Baltimore Colts. The Baltimore Colts went to Chicago, and in the first game that Bill Belichick ever was a coach in the NFL of any sort, was Walter Payton's first game in the NFL.
Wow.
And by the way, Walter Payton, 8 carries, 0 yards in his first game. And for some reason, the omen of that just really, really hit me as you've looked at some of the great Belichick moments over the years. I'm sure he had nothing to do with the defensive game plan that day. But isn't it interesting? You go, you sort of fast forward, you look at the Super Bowl against the Buffalo Bills, January 1991, when he puts together this incredible game plan, holds the Bills to 19 minutes. They basically stuff Jim Kelly. They win 20-19 on the missed Norwood kick. But he's had a lot of great defensive moments over the years. And I was just thinking about how incredible all that is. But you may not remember this, but 20 years ago, I did a long story on Belichick back in the days when we were speaking. I did a long story on Belichick. And I'll never forget one of the things he said to me when we were just sitting around one day talking. And he said to me, because I said, man, kind of a dour guy, you seem humorless, you seem this. And he goes, look how I grew up in this game at the Naval Academy, watching my dad. That was serious business. And everything was all serious. When he was 11 years old, he's one of Roger Staubach's practice receivers in 1963. And so, but anyway, I just mean to tell you that he said, this is how I've grown up in the game. This is who I am. This is how I learned football. So to me, everything about Belichick, honestly, I think dates back to his days growing up in Annapolis, Maryland. And whatever happens to him next year, he deserves it all, honestly, because he's been so great for the game. And you can say that, okay, the Spygate thing and all that stuff. And look, all of it is fair game. All of it is fair game. But on balance, guy's had a pretty incredible 49-year NFL life.
And we got to take a break, but as it relates to his next step, don't fall into the trap of looking at the non-playoff teams. Next weekend, there'll be 6 games. Next weekend, 6 playoff quality rosters will exit after one round. And if that exit happens because the coach did the kind of dumb thing that Bill Belichick would never do, that may plant the seed for somebody to say, you know what, we could get to the top of the mountain with this roster if we had Bill Belichick as our head coach. So keep that one in mind. Don't get caught up in the Commanders. Don't get caught up in the Chargers. Don't get caught up in any of these other teams that are non-playoff teams that are going to be looking for coaches. Keep an eye on playoff team that has a failure that traces to the coach. That's where the opening could be for Bill Belichick next year. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.